My name is Cameron Lusk. I was born in Sherman, Texas in 1988. I'm currently 31 years of age. I was 17 years old when I enlisted in the United States Army. My full rank was E3 Private First Class. I was part of Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 176 engineers, and Alpha Company, 56th Brigade Special Troops Battalion. I was a combat engineer. We did demolitions, room clearance, obstacle breaches, the fun stuff. My biggest motivation for enlisting was I had a brother who fought in Iraq 04-05, and I saw what it did to him, and I decided in that moment that I was going to go. I chose the Army because they offered me $20,000 to enlist and guaranteed that I could go to boot camp between my junior and senior year. The day I went to the recruiting office, I remember sitting down with a sergeant who was a friend of my brother, and we went through details. They had me do what they call a pre-ASVAB, took my test, and they gave me a list of jobs that I qualified for, and I chose 12 Bravo Combat Engineer. It felt amazing in the beginning to know that I was part of the armed service. I mean, everything, it wears on you and it tears on you, but initially it was a blessing and a huge relief. I was inducted into the Army at the Military Engineering Processing Station in Dallas, Texas. I remember walking in and just, hey, line up in a hallway. You have multitudes of tests to take. You had to do a color blindness test. They had like vision distance tests. The duck walk, which is obviously everybody's fan favorite. Attempted prostate exams. Like, I remember a unique and eclectic group of people the first time I went to MEPS.
Can you elaborate on an attempted prostate exam?
Well, there was more than just doctors in that MEPS, apparently. There was a male offered another male a prostate exam free of cost. So, yeah.
Could we possibly get you to demonstrate the duck walk?
No, absolutely not. I was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic training in AIT. That's where we did all our demo classes. That's where we actually learned how to be a soldier. We learned fire commands, fire movements. From there I went to a unit in Dallas, Texas. That would have been 2008. We went down to Camp Mabry in Austin, Texas, and did driver's training schools. We went to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and did heavy weapons ranges. Fort Polk, Louisiana, for heavy weapons ranges and mounted weapons ranges. Went to Fort Stewart, Georgia, for final prepping prior to our deployment. A typical day in basic training consisted of I wake up, brush your teeth, wash your ass, wipe your face, get in your PT clothes, downstairs, formations at 4:30, where you actually set up for PT. And then we have an hour long to an hour and a half long PT sessions. And then we head to breakfast chow, return, change your uniform, go on with your daily training. Varies obviously every day. You have your lunch chow, your supper chow. After supper chow, you went back, you cleaned the barracks, you cleaned your weapons. You know, you read your rule books, your handbooks, your handouts. You polished yourself and honed yourself as a warrior. During basic training, I qualified on an M16 A4. I was one of the last basic training units to actually use that firearm. I achieved expert marksman. I had a drill sergeant Hennis. Was probably the most influential drill sergeant that I had in basic training. I ran into a few of them in outside of the basic training, but I had one I had a few interactions with. And I mean, during basic training, they're not meant to be your best friend. They're meant to be someone who breaks you and molds you into the best fighting force that the world's ever seen. In our free time, we would play spades, dominoes. Um, Somebody bust out a PlayStation and a white sheet and a projector, and we'd play Call of Duty. We had pretty normal things that we did during downtime. I mean, I came out of AIT the summer of 2007, or fall of 2007. I got back home, got put with my unit in, I guess it would have been December of 17, or of 2007. And then I got with my unit in December. We were doing pre-deployment training for a deployment to Iraq in 08-09. So almost immediately out of my transition from advanced individual training to combat was relatively quick. I was in Iraq 08-09 and Afghanistan 10-11. Before I deployed, I was issued your standard combat uniform, your advanced combat uniform, the ACUs. We were given like combat shirts that had the ACU pattern sleeves with a olive drab chest. Keeps you from having to wear shitty uniforms under your vest, you don't sweat nearly as bad. You receive further training once you land in Kuwait. They do different trainings. There's cybersecurity training, there's mounted vehicle training, there's weapons ranges, there's all sorts of stuff in Kuwait. You're fine honing and doing last minute adjustments right before you go in. I just remember seeing sand. That was it. There was a ton of sand out of the middle of nowhere. There was a tarmac. We hit boots on ground, and it was absolutely frigid. My unit did convoy security while we were in Iraq. I was nervous the first time we saw combat. The first time I received contact, I was a little anxious, a little nervous, but overly excited. My role was driver / gunner. Primary, doing your preventive checks, maintenance and services on your Humvees, making sure your weapon systems are clean, making sure everything's functioning. And then I would either drive the vehicle or I would be on the lookout for anything out of the ordinary. I did some gate guard, I did some burn pit details, nothing insane. I mean, Courtney Lomax was one of the E5s in our unit. Great dude. We had Corporal Lehman, who was a little wonky, but I enjoyed him. Also, Specialist Hal. He was like the oldest dude I've ever seen in the service. He was in the late 40s and I was in my late teens, so it kind of made sense to me that he was just the old grump. So yeah, those three guys are pretty cool. Oh, they all survived combat. I mean, losing good friends sucks. It'll follow you, it'll hang with you, but there's somewhere better. Oh, my commanding officer was Captain Bruce Balvin, and I actually liked him. I thought he was a really nice guy. Our first sergeant was First Sergeant Wooldridge, and honestly, I thought he was bionic in some shape, form, or fashion, because at 58 years old, he had a six-pack that I had not seen on any other grown-ass man, and the dude was just physically fit. I love the smell of C4. I love the feel of det cord, the primer, your blasting caps. I love the whole mess that it makes. I was not good at push-ups at all. I looked like a meth head on Chilton County Highway somewhere trying to figure out how to dance. It was horrible. Honestly, I did, the thing that I enjoyed the least about it was the bullshit, like the drama. Hurry up and wait. Get here, be ready. 12 hours later, you're still there and ready. That bullshit, I hated it. My most exhausting experience is dealing with my producer doing this movie, doing this video. It is stress to like Boom. Right here.
Just for the record, he agreed to do this interview. He was supposed to interview other people and he didn't do it, so he got stuck with it, and it's on a voluntary basis. Sit your ass back down. Y'all see him sit his ass back down when I said it?
You wonder why I'm stressed? My most humorous experience. We had a bright idea that I could make $100 by jumping container housing unit to container housing unit. And so after enough goading, I took the bait, attempted to jump from one room to another about 14 feet, and I smashed into the side of old Grumpy Howell's room, and I knocked his coffee pot off and broke his coffee pot. And that's when I learned, after 46 years old, even in combat, if you don't have your coffee, you're a grumpy ass. My most memorable time was actually the journey home. It was something where everybody was glad they were making it back, where, you know, we were finally going to see our families. It's got to be the most memorable. I know a few guys who suffer from PTSD due to combat-related stresses. I mean, it's not really a great feeling seeing somebody you care about hit the floor. And it definitely, it varies person to person, but I've definitely seen PTSD end at the end of a pistol, and I've seen it get overcome. So I actually Skyped my dad a couple of times and would email on occasion, but I didn't spend a lot of time communicating back home. The most impressive place I saw when I was overseas was the ziggurat, or the temple, in the city of first name city in the Bible. It was located just outside of the base that we were living on, we were stationed at, in Talil, Iraq. I had some interactions with the locals. Most of them were kind. Didn't really have an issue with us. A lot of times we were going to orphanages and taking food and toys and teddy bears. And our unit, we actually had a program that our commander headed up, and we did a lot of care and maintenance operations. And we would go to local orphanages with 8 or 10 bags of crayons and coloring books and just toys and blankets and dolls and clothes that we were getting sent to us. We were having families and churches and all sorts of people just send us stuff to give to them. And I mean, it did wonders for our relations in that area. Our living quarters were actually 14-foot by 8-foot Connex boxes that were sealed and insulated and stacked in sets of 3. You had a window unit that fed the room. You had internet if you could afford it. You could get internet. There was 2 beds and 2 wall lockers, one for you and one for your roommate. I mean, it was pretty easy to sleep in a room like that. It was the knowing it was 145 degrees outside. You walk inside and it's 100 degrees in your room, but you feel cold. That's what was really got to you. I mean, the weather out there was, we were in a flat desert. It was just plain desert, as far as you could see. Occasionally there'd be ponds with water that basically they would collect salt water, let it dry out, let the water evaporate, and then would come back and harvest the salt. So I mean, it was very barren, insanely hot, didn't rain, and if it did, there was a sandstorm coming. Winds would be 100+ mile an hour, getting hit, felt like you were in an oven getting hit with a sand blaster. Oh man, we were eating like kings out there. It was like chicken wings that were fried 15 minutes too long. There was this amazing, what resembled tuna salad. I used to get it on occasion on like a tortilla. All the non-alcoholic beer you could drink, Rippets out the wazoo, Otis Spunkmeyer cookies or Grandma's cookies and Otis Spunkmeyer muffins and Pop-Tarts and Gatorade to fill your heart's content. The most exciting meal was like going to a nacho bar, or if they fresh made your waffles, because then you knew something was actually fresh. I mean, MREs were actually more of my go-to than a chow hall. I preferred the MRE over the chow hall. I mean, there's some that are just absolutely disgusting. But after a while, you begin to value things like beef ravioli or beef enchilada or grilled chicken breast, even though it's like a chicken flavored sponge with grill marks. But you start finding out which pound cakes are better. If you get lucky, you get some M&Ms. You start learning which menu item has M&Ms, which one has Skittles. Chewing gum has a laxative in it. They're not the worst, but every one has a bottle of Tabasco sauce. Every single MRE. I got the Global War on Terrorism medal, the Iraqi campaign medal, National Service ribbon. When we came home, flew a C-130 from Talil down to Kuwait, flew from Kuwait to Germany on a chartered aircraft. Got over the Atlantic after we left Leipzig, Germany. Apparently there was some kind of engine trouble or something, so we diverted to Reykjavik, Iceland. We landed at the capital of Iceland. We were on like a 6-hour standby at the airport there, so they just kind of locked us in there. The airport was literally shut down because of the winter. We flew from there to Rockford, Illinois. And from Rockford, Illinois, we landed in El Paso at Fort Bliss. And I mean, the first thing we did when we got there was load up on a van and take our butts straight to figure out where we were staying for the evenings. Building got figured out, and we went to chow. My mom drove to El Paso to pick me up. We rode 10.5 hours back, went to Killeen to visit my brother, and then went back home, visited my great-grandmother. Ended up at her house a couple nights later, and then I went and saw my dad. I still haven't adjusted to civilian life. That adjustment's easier for some, harder for others. I didn't like people before, it got worse. But now that I'm in a good place, working for good people, it's helping a lot with the attitude and the frustrations and the angers that I took it on with me. Since I separated from the military, I've had a couple of little kids, been married and divorced, moved from Texas to Alabama. I've worked in the coal industry, and now I'm working at a mom and pop restaurant that's trying to take off, and I'm following my passion at cooking. My wartime experiences have given me more value on life. It's allowed me to understand that life is short for some. So we have to live ours the best we can day in and day out.
What would you like to say, if you could, what would you say to all those who died in the war or to their families?
I don't know, I'd probably just thank them for being the people they are, or were. Their families for producing solid, productive members of society who were selfless and kind. My service didn't impact my feelings about war. It made me understand that it's a necessary evil. Do I think we belong there? Not necessarily, but war is going to happen, and I feel like we need more warriors in the garden than gardeners in the war.
What message or advice would you offer to those who are considering enlisting or those who have recently enlisted?
I'd advise you to come in and learn everything you can. I'd advise anybody joining or considering joining to take time to learn what you're going to do. Find a suitable skill set that doesn't just have value to combat. Find something like an electrician, a quarryman, a plumber, something that you can spend 20 years and still be the soldier, but it gives you something to fall back on once you get out, because no one's going to take care of you like you will. The government's not going to take care of you in that capacity.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or anything that should be added to this interview?
No.
Anything else you'd like to say?
No. Oh, hey.